most of the time when we test, the result we want is to show that we are fitter, that we are better than ever, that we're hitting numbers we've never hit before. And therefore, we get loads of confidence that training is going the right way and that racing is going to be brilliant this season. However, I think that the counseling and the advice that we need to give at this time of year is we're not looking for that. We want you to do your best on the test so it's representative of who you are right now. But we're not looking for you to beat what you hit in maybe June, as we tested you just going into the season, because we were peaking, you're massively motivated, the weather was better, etc., etc. I think that's a difficult one to get across to, but the reason that we like to do it is because even if we encourage people to train within zones and not to particular numbers, they still see an on-screen target or they want to always be at the top of the zone. It's just human nature. So
Yeah.
we could say we don't need to do testing in November, but instead of aiming for the top of your zones, I want you to always be at the bottom of your zones, because it's unlikely threshold will fluctuate by tons, but it could maybe be 20 watts difference, let's say. Now, that's quite easy. It could be a little bit more, but with about a 20-watt difference, as long as you're somewhere near the middle to the bottom of the zone, you should still be in the zone. It won't, the training zones won't change that much, but human nature doesn't allow for that. People always want to be as good as they were, hitting
Yeah.
numbers they've always hit, or if it says stay within zone 4, the number you're aiming for is the number right at the top of zone 4, and that's where you want to be. And that's probably typical of triathlon, but I think it's human nature in general. So I
Yeah.
don't think just asking people to use their current zones a little bit more sensibly and aim for the bottom actually works very well. So
Yeah.
the reason I like to retest is then we can say, look, this is where you are right now. I don't care that it's 10 watts down or 20 watts down, or your threshold pace is 5 seconds a kilometer slower. It's all within the right ballpark. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change your zones on Training Peaks to reflect where you are now, and then you don't batter yourself to death all winter.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's if we can get that across to people that it isn't failure to be lower, but we've got to be in a bit of a trough in order to have a peak in the summer, then I think we're doing our job really well.
Yeah.
And I think the
Yeah.
testing is very useful. The problem comes, I think, is if we don't get that across and we just test people, I think we would have a lot of issues with unhappy clients and people feeling that training now isn't working and all these other things. Um,
Yeah, and you can't hold a peak all year. Like, and we do exactly the same with elite athletes. We always test them in November, pretty much, and without fail. I don't think I've ever seen anyone who's as high in the winter as they are in the summer. Like literally no one. So it happens. It's just basic human physiology. You can't hold a peak,
no,
otherwise it wouldn't be a peak.
no,
It
exactly.
just be constant, and that's just you wouldn't want that anyway. So always 100% of the time you are not as good on testing in November as you are in May, June.
Yeah,
Obviously, if you've been consistent all year, there are obviously anomalies to that. But if you're training all year, you generally are faster in the summer and not as fast in the winter because that's when the races
yeah,
are.
yeah,
So yeah, and I agree. If we're setting sessions and they're going, 10% too hard, then they're already a bit more burnt out by the time they get to spring, and everything you end up just being a worse athlete. So actually training a little bit slower and consistent, and not feeling like every session is just a slog, which is
yeah,
why we've designed the sessions the way they are in the winter, because they're not designed to be like that. Even though there is some fast components, ultimately the sessions aren't generally as hard in winter as they get approach the summer.
yeah,
But they could be if you've got your thresholds the wrong,
yeah,
set them wrong.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.